At the beginning of 2025, I decided I was going to take DJing more seriously. I was planning an across-the-state move, enrolling back into school for audio production, and making a personal commitment to post a DJ mix at least once a month. Until then, I was on the artist journey by myself. I wasn't connected into the industry yet, and honestly, I didn't expect to join a collective. I'd heard mixed things about collectives, causing me to be cautious and hesitant, but that's when January of 2025 hit me. It wasn't until the middle of the month I got invited to play a small boba shop rave, and the idea was wholesome. Ticket proceeds would be donated to a fire relief fund in SoCal. Ara at the time was working at the boba shop. She partnered with Chris Pinoy, who had put on pop-up events before with DJs like Harabas and Supreme Asian. Ara reached out to me and I got added to this group chat and lineup with Chris, Ara, Sonder, and BJ, at the time DJ. So this group chat became the planning hub for what we later named Boba and Bass, same name as the event. I never expected what would happen next, which was the event blew up. Like, we garnered viral levels of attention from the boba shop, the event itself, and all of us individually too. But the biggest thing for me from those early shows wasn't the attention or the virality. It was the energy, the feeling like it was a community event. Like, people were showing up for us as friends, keeping up that same energy as a crowd for everyone else on the lineup. It was the most supportive and genuine event I'd gone to, and what a beautiful thing to have been a part of. That feeling of community even transcended into something that unexpectedly happened to me with the gaming community, which, if you guys don't know, I don't play PvP games often, but as a huge Marvel fan, I love Marvel Rivals. And when I posted a video of me playing this last-minute excision edit with spliced voice lines from the game, it was purely made out of fun, last minute at 2 a.m., and I thought it'd be funny. This video of me DJing in a boba shop was being reposted across all platforms, even by Daily Mail Gaming. I received DMs from old friends I hadn't seen in a long time asking, "Is this you?" Even someone at a funeral recognized me because of that clip, which was surreal. The whole thing was surreal. It even led to a video collab with one of the voice actors. Shout out to Elia Mountjoy. He's the voice of Bucky. And it led me to creating a second edit that was more trolly than the last one. You guys have not heard it. The event, like Boba and Bass and what came after, showed me something important that would shape my 2025 thereafter. It showed me I could actually contribute to an entertainment team, solidifying I could be more than an artist, but I could help build things. I supported what I could offer, like where I could offer, because some of it was simple stuff, right? Or came naturally to me. And whether it was making flyers off my phone using Canva, because that's just what was accessible to everybody at the time and what we could all collaborate on. There was even a time for the first Boba and Bass, walking from my hotel to Space Mountain in Disneyland to revise one of the flyers for Boba and Bass. I think it was like the one with all of our names on it. And I remember I exported it, but since I had just got into the ride queue, we're about to get onto the ride, I couldn't send it to them because there was no like service. That was something so small, and it was a part of the big marketing that I did like overall for the collective, and I did like community outreach and made quick promotional edits. Aside from like that digital stuff, I tried to bring equipment when I could or what I had, like a photo booth set up, an iPad to use as a ticket scanner for Posh, and even like an old GoPro to record everyone's sets, like little things, because we had to start somewhere, right? Also, seeing what other people were bringing made me want to contribute more. For example, without VJ at the first Boba and Bass, that production level wouldn't have been what it was. He brought the entire production setup, from the lasers to the stage to the lights, even a camera, I'm pretty sure. And for the second Boba and Bass, Chris brought in Robbie to handle the sound and lighting as production shifted. And these are instances where I was reminded that scenes are built by communities, not individuals. Hell, even like Harabas, like he always has his CDJs, and if it weren't for him, I don't think I would be playing as much on CDJs, and I love him for that. After Boba and Bass, right, the realization dawned on that group, that Boba and Bass original group, like something could be built bigger than Boba and Bass. And that's when the idea of forming a collective came up. Especially it started with the group chat of Chris, Ara, Sonder, and I. Chris pitched the name Social, but that handle of like social events was already taken, especially on Instagram. So I suggested social stages with the thinking that it wouldn't box us into events and we could still say we're a collective. And it felt like a manifestation that we'd take over stages one day, which we eventually did, right? I mean, once the name was agreed upon, I remember my marketing brain never turned off for the duration of like 2025. But in the early stages, I secured the username and created the pages on social media, created an email and set up the link tree, basically laying as much digital infrastructure that I thought would benefit us. And I kind of do that for like any brand that I work with, collective, group, artist, creative. Doing all of that like came naturally to me. Same thing with building like the early branding using Canva, because that was just most accessible to everybody in the group to, you know, check in on, put notes, edit, and collaborating with the group via messages. I remember creating the one sheet style guide for a few members, as well as the collective, working with Ara on the logo design and gathering assets for social media posts. And I was doing all of this while still editing videos and clipping sets, setting out footage that I captured from that small little GoPro, or outdated GoPro. And at the time, these seemed like such small things, but I realized setting up those small things for any collective or brand becomes like a part of the foundation of it all. One of my favorite moments from early social like was a video shoot for our Labubu rave. It was kind of like a promo shoot. This was deemed as the first Social Studios, or I like to call it Social Studios Volume 0. It was made with the intent to be like Club Studio Time, same thing with all of the rest of our Social Stage Studios events. And I remember that this promo video, right? Like each individual artist was meant to do their own video to promote Labu Bass, because this was going to be bigger than Boba and Bass. And it was originally meant to be shot at someone else's house. Schedules misaligned or something happened where we ended up filming in the garage of my own childhood home. And as someone who grew up throwing parties in that house, it made me super nostalgic because the setup was simple. It was just friends and peers, a camera, and music. Oh, and my grandma also randomly bringing out nachos, like food for us to eat, because you can't go to a Filipino party and not be fed. Anyway, the clips people posted gained a lot of reach. People wanted to come to my garage to film this. We even continued doing it for Social Studios. Even kind of going back on that nostalgia factor, like I loved bringing in one of my best friends in the world, Roji. That was like the first instance of Social Studios Volume 0 of him working with Social. That reminded me because we go way back. He's been to my parties for like a decade. Anyways, but since, you know, those posts of the promo, like Social Studios Volume 0, gained a lot of reach, I think it's part of the reason, or like that contributed to when expectations and visions of the collective started changing. As the collective grew, and so did our events, us individually, challenges began to show up too. And that's normal, okay? It's growing pains, as everybody and every organization has them, especially in early stages. There were things like we didn't have a consistent team of security to rely on. Certain instances, like for example, there was an event where people weren't fond of like one specific door check-in that we weren't in charge of. The venue got him, but we wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be there again. Or, you know, due to a lack of budget, because us being so early on and not us properly budgeting or whatever, that kind of meant sometimes we would pay for ads, tools, artists, and any digital infrastructure, including Discord bots to Google Workspaces to whatever else you may need to keep the flow of your events or your organization going. And I think realizing that the hardship of balancing that aspect of whether it's a business or it's a collective, is it something for fun, you also need to realize balancing the roles in such an organization, because people have to balance their own lives, their jobs, and varying travel depending on whatever cities. For example, I was consistently up and down California all of last year and still am to this day, and I love it. It's like being a digital nomad and getting to see so many different cities and play different shows, see so many different family and friends. It's great, but that's something I had to balance over the course of time, realizing what I could take on my workload from my independent projects, as well as the collective or any other groups I was a part of. And you got to understand when to plan out certain events, whether that is something as small as like actual show and a big event, or a podcast or a shoot, a community meetup. To say all of this, right, to wrap this all up, this part all up at least, these are all normal growing pains. However, it did reveal that passion alone isn't enough. One could simply address these growing pains in a very stable and consistent manner by applying organization, communication, and structure. So most of the communication I had with the collective happened through texting. It's common in this day and age where you're all busy living different lives in different cities and working different schedules, and it's the most consistent asynchronous way to connect with people. However, I think without consistent meetings, most check-ins, whether they're internal or event related or happenstance, at least from my perspective, will happen when events got closer. And this would probably sometimes, happen with planning things a little later, or questions got answered the day of, smoothing out things day of, and like running around, just things like that. But I just remember in the early stages as a team, I believe the structure wasn't allocated the same. I don't know, privilege, I guess, respect. That's something I learned a lot from, and hopefully you can too. Because one piece of advice I'd give anyone trying to build a collective, brand, or organization is to have check-in meetings. And they don't need to be long. They can be informal, or you can create an agenda, whatever the hell you want. Will I get flagged for that? I don't know. They just need to keep everyone informed, transparent, and aligned, because even with like text messages, for example, sometimes simple things like asking people to react to a message to confirm they read it makes a huge difference, and clear understanding even when explicit. Oh, and even during events, right? Communication is important, whether it's through a text, group chat, a designated event Discord channel, or you can go all out and invest in headphone walkie-talkies so you can communicate like via radio frequency channels, whatever works for you. When events get busy and some members are also performing or handling certain projects, other roles, staying connected becomes really important, and not everybody has an Apple Watch. Yes, I've been talking a lot, and I'm so sorry. Thank you for bearing with me, but I've been talking a lot about the behind the scenes and a technical aspect. However, I do want to lift the curtain a little bit and speak more about what was happening in my life during all of this, like my personal life. Over the course of early 2025, I attended 5 funerals for family members, and almost every single one of them happened within a week of a social event or a show I played with someone in the collective. And using productivity as a coping mechanism for grief is not something new to me. For those who don't know, my mom passed away a few months after I was born. And my dad passed away a couple years ago, just a couple weeks before I walked the stage for my bachelor's degree. And working hard has always been my way of honoring them and all the other people who came before me who are no longer with us, especially in this industry where I'm able to express myself and my emotions and pay tribute to them, and all the emotions that come with this journey. Even if you guys don't know, like my logo, for example, is the way it is because it's my dad's handwriting. I really try to alchemize that grief into something more powerful. And in that same year, the same spring semester of 2025, I took 7 classes, earned 2 audio production certificates, played my first festival alongside Sonder in Fresno at the same art center, and helped build the collective up, like really lay the foundation. And despite all the highs, I don't think I was giving myself time to process the lows. That's kind of when I realized passion is maybe not enough, but it is enough that it can hide burnout. And that's something a lot of creatives experience. And so hopefully you get this if you're watching this. Personally, for me, by late summer of 2025, I had finished traveling from Sacramento to SoCal, all over playing different shows, different stages. And I was finally home for about a month straight. And that's when I sat with myself and had the alone time to make the decision to step back from social for a little bit. And not because I didn't care, because I do, and I will always care for social. It's something I contributed building. I love the people within it who started it with us, but I knew at the time I needed time to process everything that had happened that year. Process the grief, process the accomplishments, and the weight of them to properly celebrate them, because I'm kind of known for not celebrating my wins. I'm working on it. More importantly, I needed to process the pace we as the collective were moving at, right? Consistent shows, consistent headliners. We were growing bigger and bigger. And I realized then how much I'd been pouring into the collective, while my own artist project, all my other ideas and personal priorities needed some love too. I chose to take a step back. This was around August. Even if that break didn't last longer than a month, I kind of came back around Galactic Gardens. That break that didn't last that long was not a break in time, but the break changed how my role and my presence within social evolved and was perceived after that, because I kind of set that boundary for myself, and anything after that was kind of out of my hands. I've talked about a lot of things that I've learned throughout this entire experience in this past year, but one of the biggest lessons I learned throughout all of this is about leadership, and leadership in an organization specifically. That doesn't mean that one person should be doing everything, and it doesn't mean people should work in isolation. Leadership means listening. Leadership means distributing responsibility, and leadership means recognizing everyone's strengths, but also giving them the room and space to further any other skills they would like to develop, gain, or just try out for a day. You never know, because they could be the next prodigy. When Social first started, a lot of the social media branding and graphic work naturally fell to me, and I was happy to do it. I still am. It's something I studied for in college. It was a career goal of mine and still is. But looking back, I also realized how important it is to distribute roles early so people can grow into them, and how important it is to collaborate on the responsibility. Strong collectives grow when people are trusted with responsibility and aren't just dead focused on one vision. Because as time went on, everyone's paths started changing. Shows got bigger, people traveled more, people got booked more, newer members and promoters joined. Visions began shifting, and without consistent communication, some of those shifts weren't always transparent. And in this time, I was also moving again and focusing more on where life is and was taking me individually. This year in the big 2026 really marked the beginning of a new chapter for me. I attended the NAMM show for the first time in my entire life, and I wait to go again, as a Layman Next Gen scholarship recipient. I made my debut at 1015 Folsom in San Francisco, thanks to Neon Owl. Shout out Elaine. And I've been building something new too. If you know Roji, Shot by Roji, he has worked on a lot of media with me. He's worked on a lot of media with the Social Collective as well as Harabas, but he's also my longtime best friend of over 10 years. I've known him since we were in grade school together, and he and I have started developing a decade-long project, evolving it into a fully equipped multimedia service company called Yunaro Media. We're working with Harabas to focus on creating new kinds of content for the music community and beyond, whether that's lifestyle content or event content, you name it, we are going to help produce it for you straight from our studio. Everything that I learned from helping build Social, the wins, the challenges, the lessons, the skills I developed, I want to carry forward into this next chapter. And honestly, I'm freaking excited. I'm especially because at the end of the day, the goal is and will always remain the same. Build community, support artists, elevate spaces where people can show up and be heard, and of course, nerd out together. If you've made it this far in this video with me or in this journey, are artist or not, maybe you've been watching content from mine for a while, thank you. That's crazy to me. I still can't believe it. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for hearing me out, and I hope you have a wonderful, lovely rest of your weekday, year, 2026, life. I love you guys so much.